own sister is trying to kill me. She died a long time ago, fell into a well. It was an accident, and I wasn't even there. Yet, we were always very close, and it seems it's haunting me now. After the tragedy, we moved to the city with our parents, and I didn't feel anything like this. Recently, I came back to the village alone, and it started, at first, just dreams, periodic, exhausting. Then, I began waking up, screaming in horror. Now, I see something in mirrors. Recently, standing by the road, something pushed me from behind, and if it weren't for luck, I wouldn't be alive. As if that's not enough, I started hearing her laughter. I went to the church. It didn't help. I invited a priest. It worked briefly. I'm scared. I don't know what to do. Every day, it feels like she's getting closer and wants to take me with her so she won't be so lonely there. I don't want to die.
I was 15 at the time. I borrowed money from my mom for the internet cafe, and she set a condition to take my 5-year-old brother to visit his friend on the way. We left home, and I felt so annoyed about having to take the little one. My friends were waiting for me at the cafe, so I escorted him across the street and asked if he could make it by himself. The little one briskly walked towards the friend's house, and I went on my way. In the evening I returned, but my brother wasn't home. His friend's parents said he never came. The child just vanished in broad daylight. We contacted the police, stayed awake for days, searched every street, and asked passers-by. But all in vain. I haven't slept well in 10 years. Every day I blame myself because it happened to me. I'll never forgive myself. What if he's still alive? After all, his body has never been found.
I was heading home late at night. I heard someone shouting, and then, in the distance, a silhouette of a woman appeared. She was calling for help, so I rushed towards her. As I got closer, I asked what happened. She screamed again, pointed somewhere, and told me, "Run." I turned my head, and there was a man with a large knife in his hands. He paid no attention to the woman and started coming after me. Clearly deranged, either drunk or on something, wild, furious eyes, I quickly crossed the road, and he followed, ignoring the red light. I sped up and started running. I didn't even look back. It was terrifying, but I could hear his footsteps. He periodically shouted, "Stop, I'll kill you." I saw an open entrance and hurriedly went in. Hid to the left of the door, at the entrance to the basement. The man followed. Luckily, it was dark, and he didn't notice me. I covered my mouth with my hands, held my breath, and he went up the stairs. Apparently, he thought I went upstairs. I waited for a few minutes and dashed out towards the bus stop. I got on a minibus and couldn't shake off the horror. All the time, it felt like he was nearby. A couple of days later, the news reported that they caught him. He escaped from a mental institution and left several innocent people stabbed.
My son regularly frightened me with his behavior. He claimed to see the dead and even communicate with them. Our deceased relatives would regularly visit him. My son would prove that he saw them playing with his grandparents, and at night he claimed to talk to his aunt in his dreams. I dismissed it all as an active imagination, even though it scared me to no end. One day during breakfast, he came and said he would die soon. I tried to reason with him, telling him it wasn't true and not something to say. However, he insisted that his whole family was eagerly waiting for him there, and would take him away forever next time. I went to the bathroom and cried. I realized I was now afraid to leave the child alone, even for a moment. I consulted a psychiatrist on the same day. He prescribed sedatives and sleeping pills for my son. He reassured me that everything was normal and that the child simply had a vivid imagination. A few days later, my son passed away in his sleep. The doctor said it was a sudden cardiac arrest.
This is not mysticism, but after this incident, I lost the ability to speak for several days. I was returning from a friend and descended into the underpass where there was no one. I'm walking, and I see a big guy coming towards me. He walks, looks at me, and smiles so disgustingly, not taking his eyes off. I lowered my gaze and saw that he had, not a knife, but something like a huge cleaver in his hands. I stopped and froze. I realize I need to run, but my legs just won't obey, and my brain starts to panic. He, still smiling, walked past, and I managed to say goodbye to life, and in those few seconds, remember all the good things that happened to me. Since then, I prefer to go around 500 meters, but don't go down into underpasses, especially if there are no people.
I was coming back late from a friend's place. I live outside the city, so I still have to walk through a field to get home from the mini bus stop. I was walking alone on a poorly lit stretch of road when, at some point, I noticed headlights behind me. I stepped aside to let the car pass, but it slowly trailed behind me and didn't overtake. I quickened my pace and became nervous. There was no one around, only the sound of the wind and crickets in the field, and it became scary. At some point, I started running. The car began to chase me faster. I was in panic, abruptly turned to the right, entered the field, and crouched down. The car stopped, and a man got out. He looked around, but in the darkness, he couldn't see me. He stood there for about 5 minutes, searching with his eyes. Then he turned around and drove in the opposite direction. I cried in horror. I couldn't bring myself to get up for a long time, then jumped up and ran towards home, constantly looking back. At home, I couldn't calm down and didn't sleep all night.